Yeah, but I was given a synthesis followed by synthesis by Parmesh. So synthesis, I would start with the first slide of instead of synthesis, you start with your learning. What is it you can pick up from today? My learning from this, yes, my learning from this is, Sir said we are unique, hardworking, educated, and responsible. So these three traits are enough to bring a transformational change in healthcare in the country. Number one. Number two is, Ram said that small group of people are required, as said by Margaret Mead, to bring in transformational. It is proved beyond doubt that these small group of people sitting here have really brought in transformational changes in the country. Wasim Ali sir, 1 crore 36 families impacting in 14 states across the country. And these small groups should work in a interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary approach to solve this problems of the country. And these small groups can be role models and inspirational leaders for other doctors who are coming in the country. So what I learned is small groups, educated, responsibility, and emulate LVPI model from the pyramid model for my model of colorectal practice, where we can bring in transformation. I thought we need a big group to do it, but now I am confident with a small group of committed, passionate people, we can bring in changes. This is what I learned. Sir.
Okay. Uh, for me, I mean, it's a huge learning experience. First of all, I mean, Dr. G.N. Rao and Wasim Ali. Community participation is key, is what the biggest takeaway from this meeting. I mean, for the adolescent health, I mean, now we have such a model where our volunteers have to go every 15 days, educate those school children. I think if the local ownership, local villagers take up the responsibility of, providing a toilet or a wash basin, or, girls' toilet and sanitary napkins for that school, take care of the quality of education, I think that is key. I mean, that's what I think is the biggest takeaway for us from Dan Foundation. And also for the breast milk bank, how the local communities, mothers who have already delivered, mothers who are going to deliver, and the local population around Nilofer Hospital, how they can be engaged to make the hospital much better than what it exists today. And from LVPI model, I mean, for sure, training good quality Netra Rakshaks or site ambassadors who are our big base across India, and how exactly we train them, because they have a heart but they're not trained. All the community cornea retrieval, or probably, and also identification of blindness at the rural tribal areas. I think we will come back to LVPI to see how exactly we can build upon the model and a bridge into that vision. I don't know what you say, below vision centers, vision guardians. So vision guardians linkage to, we can have this huge force as vision guardians who can link up to this vision centers model. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So my learning is the equitable care and synthesis of synergies of the among the participants will give more reach, and more care will be given to the large population. And especially this synergies, we need not reinvent the wheels. Those who are having the synergies, for example, he is doing the adolescent health, I am also doing the similar way in some manner. If we together can do, we can reach a more number of people. So similarly, I am doing some small way, a refractive error, primary screening. So if I have some technical help from LVPI or some other way, association, I can reach certain extent. Not a comprehensive way, in my own way in a preventive healthcare organization, we can do something. Like that, it's better to have a synergies will help us to reach large population.
So more or less, I agree with the speakers before me, because Saksham is working beyond medical rehabilitation. We can have collaboration and work together. And this meeting has given me confidence that there are many people thinking on similar lines in different areas. And I hope this will not end up with this one meeting and we continue to work together.
Thank you.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is what Mr. Wasi said was about the patience which we need to have for this community model to actually work on the ground. I think many of the youngsters which say we work with employees work, they are very very impatient, I would say, and they want to make that impact yesterday than tomorrow. So I think we still need to look back and kind of work with the team to ensure to figure out that do we really have that so build that model on the ground where we can find the people who are ready to put their heart into it and not only look at their head. And and the second is definitely I think a lot of things about um, when we are going to the community, then it's not that okay you look for only for eye or you look for only for diabetes or you look for hypertension. So I think there is an opportunity to work together to make sure that there are a lot of these can be addressed in one go by the health worker, so that we have the information and then we can actually figure out the referral and follow up in the best possible manner. So I think there is definitely a lot of opportunity to collaborate with multiple players out there, and I look forward to that.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Rajiv, do you want to? No. Dr. Somshila?
Just to add that it's been very like a revelation to listen to everybody's stalwarts who have created NGOs, and the passion with Dr. Parmeshwar and I know Santosh of course and all the others, the passion with which you've started it and the different models. So yours is different from compared to what you had described. So some are partly sustainable, some depend on funds, and then you're looking at the government, which is a huge battle in itself. So I think it's a lot of learning for people like us, I guess, who are attending this. And also we hope it does continue and not end here.
Beulah? Anything?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of scope for us to integrate the disability sector into whatever you're already doing. I'll be glad to integrate and then do some collaborative projects, other initiatives. And the issues and the other things commonly whatever we discuss, I relate that to my field also. So good learning experience.
I think I learned that there's a high amount of colorectal disease in society. I wasn't aware of this. Yeah, but jokes aside, I think what came out from this was the fact that it's very important for the community to have an ownership. And if that is lacking, and what Dawn Foundation has shown is that if the community is really involved, then they can actually make mountains move. That's one thing that we need to work on. The other thing was the rural immersion program that you spoke about, and I think it would be useful for all of us to have this kind of concept, because not many people know what's going on in the rural areas. We come from urban areas and we only know about that, but we don't actually know what's happening out in the villages, so to speak. And this was something that I learned even from one of our staff who's working in the community. Apparently she said that people in the tribal areas are so poor, they don't even have money to buy medication, so we operate them. They go back, they don't use medicines, they don't have money to come for a checkup, but they can pay in kind. So they carry, for their livelihoods, they carry sticks and exchange that for vegetables, or they carry vegetables and exchange that for meat. So, it's a total different scenario out there. So that was one thing. And then I learned that about corruption, I think we've never bent, and we will never bend. But what's important is persistence, because someday you're going to wear out that person. He knows you're not going to give him money, but he has to disperse it at some point of time. So the more persistent you are, I think they will give it to you. It may take a year, it may take 2 years, but it's going to come someday.
Thank you. Aja, short.
I have a few comments actually. We discussed about health-seeking behavior, changing the mindset. That applies to the public as well as to the professionals from our side. What I have seen in at least the non-communicable diseases is that even the awareness is low, and even among those who have the knowledge, it's not converted into practice in terms of health-seeking behavior. One area which we could look at is these high visibility individuals like film stars, sports persons, politicians, whether they can help change the mindset, because we have not heard commonly here, that I am a cancer survivor. Any high visibility individual doesn't speak about it. But if you have diabetes, they don't come out and say, I have had diabetes for the last 30 years and I am perfectly fine. So these could be, we all have some connections probably. We all could utilize them and their services. If they could change their mindset, people will change their mindset. And the other thing was, this has been discussed, is the integrated model in the sense we don't need multiple models for different diseases. Same single window can be used for different diseases instead of having one for colorectal, one for eye.
So to use the multi-purple, yeah.
And then link it, sometimes you need to have a carrot and stick approach and incentive. Like the midday meal program, although they used to come for food, they also, as a side benefit, learned something in school. Similarly, for these screening programs for, at the age of 40, when you you have to screen for
Yeah.
these diseases.
Keep it short.
You can have, some program where, people have an incentive to screen diabetes.
Yeah. Prashant, you need.
Just a second.
Mhm.
So I think what I learned is that there are many organizations that are working in the same sphere that we are, and probably there is an opportunity to collaborate. And I found that the iBanking move that is there, and plus the school health education programs, where we can also contribute and try to work with them.
Thank you. Ramam, anything?
Yeah, I believe, I once again believe that the communities are very important stakeholders in making a difference to all of us. You said about communities, so I'll just very briefly tell an experience. I was also a city boy till I joined.
I hope DVR will allow us. We're on a timer.
I was in a secondary center most recently for an anniversary. I'll just and by the time I reached there, as a guest, there were already 50 people from that village already sitting there, and then they are already making all the arrangements and all. So I went in there, and they stayed. Cut the long story short, they were there. They were serving food after the event was over. They were the ones who invited the local MLA. They were the ones who brought the other speakers. They served food to all the people, and they stayed after that to watch the cultural program and all that. So I was talking to them in Telugu. I asked one of the oldest in that group. So it looks like you are both on the bride side as well as the bridegroom side for this marriage. He said, no, of course. All of you are the guests here. We own the hospital. LVPI employs our guests.
Wow,
So more of a community
fantastic.
of how
Yeah.
they will own it, what they would do. He was telling that early morning he gets up, goes to the fields. He will not, for the last so many years, 9 years since the center has come, there was not a single day that he didn't pass by our hospital after he visited his fields. Then the last stop is our secondary center. Then he goes home. So that's a part of his property.
Tremendous sense.
That's a part of the community.
Tremendous sense of ownership. Yeah.
I learned a big way that how the community actually can empower, particularly from Vasi's discussion comments by Seshadri, that we are doing it, but then my question was, are you doing enough for a community ownership? Sometimes they own it like Ramam told, sometimes they do not own it. So what should the mechanism or the middle path that we take so that community actually participate in a big way? If somebody comes and that is my hospital, it is my place, it is my area, it is my people, then whole thing goes forward. I do not know the answer, but then that will be reflecting on next several months how to do what I'm doing, whatever I'm doing, how to involve the community in the work that we do.
GC.
People have covered whatever I have learned. I don't need to add anything.
The gentleman here.
I learned so many things from this elite group. Some experiences which I am getting in the field. those things are confirmed by elders. So Dr. Jain Rao bring the notice, very good point. 3 P's, sensitizing the professionals, policymakers and people. From the so many years we are doing sensitization of the people, but sensitization of policymakers and professionals is also important. We are getting good results also. Everybody is bad is not like that. Most of the policymakers also being sensitized. And professionals were good response. Another point, we usually our hundreds of projects depend upon the funds from society, philanthropies. We don't approach government funds still. But we started off late in Telangana also. We started a Andhatva Mukta village, a preventable blindness free village project with the government of Telangana. So while working with government, the point what Vasi sir told is very important. Some revolving fund should be there. If not there, we will become fools. Our project, so-called, is it should be stopped. So if we have revolving fund, definitely we can seek the government help also. There are very good people in government also, in all the governments. So we can seek their help also. And last session by Vasis, they should be continued at least for 2 months or 3 months as a learners. We can put up the models here, discuss about models, and we can implement all together.
Thank you. Mr. Raja?
Yeah, one very good learning that is always we should take it. For a good work, so money is not a constraint. So thing is, again 3 P's, the principles, process and practice. This is very important. That is, its experience come from Dr. GNR. And second thing is the community engagement. Everybody says about it. Without that, actually, we can't succeed anything, and also we can't see the sustainability. The third thing is very importantly, I learned here. So building a technical competency at grassroots level. So this is very, very important to ensure the services to the community as well as to reduce the burden of the professionals. Finally, the partnership for synergy. I could able to see many more partners here for the future partnership. So that is also another it's a gain. Just I learned from that. Thank you.
2 things. One is, I think, what everyone seems to have said is that you need to look at the problem in totality. Solving just a part of the problem actually may be worse than not solving it at all. So I think that is one. The second, which for me was quite an eye-opener, is everybody talked about task shifting. I may like to use the word task segmentation. That how do you create different tasks and then find out who is best suited to do it. In my mind, actually can be the most appropriate solution or step going ahead for healthcare. It improves quality, it would improve productivity and hence lower cost, and it also helps address manpower challenge for that matter. But that is something which I think the larger healthcare player community needs to understand and appreciate.
Thank you. If I may just add what I've learned, like all of you, it's been a huge. No. We will pass the mic to you. It's been a huge learning experience. I do believe that there's a lot we can learn from the pyramid model and extrapolate it in the maternity world. Community participation was what I learned from then. And the fact that you said rural immersion, because I know when the UK midwives come, they go back completely changed and more appreciative of what they have. I got a lot of comfort listening to you about zero tolerance for bribes. We've suffered enormous amounts of money financially just because we've refused. But it gives me courage to know that there are others also who have stood by this. I'm learning now that I need a revolving fund to work with the government. So that means I just need to work harder to earn that money. But finally, it's a tremendous comfort to know that we can plug into each other for help and to sound, to bounce ideas. And I look forward to us coming again to continue this. Mic has been passed to the three of you, but you have to say something before you pass the mic.
I'm done with it. Yeah, I'm done.
Probably you talked about community participation. We don't use the word called participation. We use the word called ownership because we only participate in their program. I think this perspective, many times we think that we really, because many people use that community participation. So we participate in their program. Then it puts our role completely different. And then the way we really use it through the process. Morning visit was really quite excellent for us. We had a 7 to 8, we had a good visit. I think this is for my first visit. I picked up many things, written so many, but the kind of observation is the innovation center is a great one. And you really provide a space for people. And 3 or 4 innovation was demonstrated to us. It's quite simple and it's affordable for the, I think that's a great concept which every institution can really incorporate as a part of innovation. And I also seen the kind of, I said, aesthetics is the first, I was just impressed with the ambience and the aesthetics of the whole thing. The archaeological work and kind of things, no? I think that is really gives a lot of soothing effect being here. And cross-subsidization, yes, it's one of the interesting part. One thing which struck me very strongly is I see some of the poor patients coming here is for me is a proxy indicator for poverty to start the groups with them. That's what struck me. Because those who are really non-paying here is the target segment for them. Because then we can really start organizing. So it's a proxy indicator for us. It's that itself is very clear. So where they are really staying, and we need to really get into the location where they are there. In fact, we are working in Andhra as well as Telangana and Orissa. So we may really look for a grassroots partnership with our communities and other things. And I really, once I really went through this, part of learning was complete. They were really given each one's strength, advantage and other thing, and each institution. I think that's a great preparatory work made us to really stand on that to really talk about it. Yeah. And you got 2 updates, no? So that is also very interesting. So I went through 2 updates. The first update with a lot of detail, second update is really more focused. These are great, but we should not stop here. Probably we should continue with the learning hub processes and take it forward. Thanks for the opportunities.
The one thing that I learned most was the way he's making notes. No, really, it's. I was kind of intrigued, and I asked him. A similar thing I saw with an English friend of mine in the past. The way he's making notes is immediately transferable to his programs. And then second thing is, I think he's making his teaching material right away. I used to have a friend called Alan Foster in London who used to do that when he was listening to anybody. He immediately makes the teaching slides out of that. And then also what he can implement in his program in a separate note. This program I'll use this program I'll use this program. And that's probably the best lesson for me sitting next to him in time management. Because many of our colleagues keep complaining about time. But we are not organized like that. That organized thought process is a learning for me. And the second is the possibility, sir, of actually having a dhan counter for our non-paying patients, where one of your people sit and depending on the level of poverty, whether you can help them to pull them out of that. So that's an offer from our side I'm making. So we'll work with your group and really both here and more importantly in secondary centers and vision centers area. And the third is in our secondary centers we have land. We can create extra space. In our vision centers we work with only 2 rooms. We can probably rent another 1 or 2 rooms or add 1 or 2 rooms. And why not try the maternal child thing and the colorectal thing. We won't be able to do it. You put your people, same locations you add on to these segments. Thank you.
Anybody from the observers would like to make comments? We have some very highly accomplished people, Dr. Ved, Dr. Aziz, Dr. Pramod, and several more. At the end, Dr. Okay, so we can just hear Dr. Rang.
So this has been a really enlightening session this whole morning. What I would say, I'm very encouraged to see that there are so many young people who, as Mr. Basi said, that now are actually encouraged to do NGO work as a career, which I mean was not one of the many options years ago, but it seems to be a very encouraging and very fulfilling option for young people. So that's one thing I've seen. It's also true that leadership seems to matter, no matter where you are, and clarity in your ideas, identify them, and perseverance. I think that's the main thing, because you have to persevere to overcome so many obstacles to get where you need to go. The process and the perseverance, and of course we learned that the community support which you get over time is perhaps the most important thing to actually, make a success of what you do. And I think one more very important thing which came out was that everybody had their single ideas, but pooling together all of it has made an impact in this session. And of course, the question of corruption has not. I think that is a subject by itself, probably needs a conference on its own. But thank you so much. It has been a very good learning experience for us.
It's been a privilege to be a part of this meeting and hearing all of you, because we have been into the Karimnagar model, and then we have been struggling because all this time we have been protected and lived into a very cocooned world, and where you want something, you go to the boss and demand from her, and you got it. So it was a very different one. The most beautiful part of getting to know from each one of you was the document, I think, which has got email addresses written for it. And I think as I sat over here, I thought I have already made up my mind what all emails I'm going to write to which persons are connecting with different people who have worked and experienced so much more, which we can learn from. Is the most beautiful thing, I think, that's important for us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My learning and key takeaways from this gathering is that we all are working towards some cause, some particular specialty in healthcare sector. There needs to be a collaborative approach, and then I think this meeting is allowing us to share each other's experiences and learnings, and then the way forward is to probably take this approach. I mean, this approach has been, in my experience, within quality improvement, there used to be a collaborative approach where different organizations used to come together and discuss what their implementation and experience has been. And I think this is, going forward, this is going to be a key takeaway for us to probably come back and discuss what has been the progress in each of us, our takeaways. Yeah, I think that's a great thing happening over here. Thank you.
I think it's been indeed a great pleasure for us to be here, listening to everybody. And as Nuzat said, initially we were pampered by whatever we wanted, we used to get. But I think if people stay in an organization which has a culture for a long time, and I think we are a minute fraction of what LVP does, each one of them are sort of buy into the philosophy and whether it's research or the commitment. I think over a period of time they sort of get converted into it. And people who have joined us even at a senior level, sometimes there was a culture fit, but if they have stayed with us for a little while, I think they got blended into us quite easily. We started KMC in 2004 when it was not known in India. So, I mean, we could significantly bring down the cost. But why it does not go down, as Sir said, like a Bahubali? Because there is no interest, there is no commercial angle to that. No company benefits out of doing, in fact, the incubators and those companies actually stand to lose. So probably it doesn't, it has to come from the community that, if my baby is not requiring any intensive care, the baby has to go into KMC. So if the community is aware of such interventions, I think then the pressure would be like NNF has come out with guidelines now that every NICU should have a KMC ward, but it took almost 15 years for it to come. We started the first milk bank 10 years ago because we felt the need that the mothers required, and then of course these people have taken it up to a large, greater extent. Whether it is midwifery, to be in a private sector doing this as an obstetrician, to have a conviction about midwifery. I think these are things, if the obstetricians who are in the team are convinced that, actually, somebody was saying that your chairman is doing work that is detrimental to the business of Fernandez. But I think that is where the strength of the conviction is. And it's nice to know that, there are so many organizations who are doing this work out of passion and conviction. And I think there are many more organizations which we need to identify and bring them into the group.
You mean so many crazy people sitting around?
Yes. Good morning. The campus tour helped us very lot to understand about the LVP activities. And basically what we observed during the tour is 3 C's are very high in LVP, like culture, commitment and competency. Generally we follow in our organization. And here also it is very high culture of the staff, starting from lower cadre to high level. All are equally seeing the patients. And this is one thing. Second one, whatever we are following in Dhan.
Shame, the 4th C is weak, the chairman.
It is like this community ownership. I think whatever we are doing, it is reiterated that it is essential in all the activities in order to see the overall development among the community. Thank you.
We now have the floor open to anybody else who hasn't spoken so far, including Dr. Ved.
So you realize that you are opening the Dhan counters for us. You are in charge here of Telangana.
Friends, a reality check on time. We are at 12:55, but with the consent of the chairpersons of the next session, we'll just spill this over because we are sort of having a synergy creation meeting as we talk, right? So we'll use the last few 20 minutes or so on way forward, which I'll request Dr. GCS and EPD to. No, I'm coming back to that. I just want to say that we are now transitioning to the next session. Is that okay, sir? Yeah. We'll take a few comments from the residual, those who have not spoken, and then go to way forward, which is essentially where we want to end. So we have another 5-6 people who need to speak their minds. Then we are good to go.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity. What I learned from this is that there are a lot of organizations and people who are really doing big work here. So the key is for all of us to get together more frequently and at a regular basis so that we all complement each other's, and our thought process keeps on going in the same groove. That is the most important thing, as you are in the same thing. The second most important thing is to identify other hospitals. I mean, for example, I came across this Akash Asha Hospital. I don't know if you know about this. Akash Asha is by one Dr. Bharatendra Swine. He is a plastic surgeon, and he is running a successful hospital on a cross-subsidization model. So there are many other doctors and other allied professionals who are doing such services. So the next uh, endeavor would be to include all those and share their experiences as well as to how they are able to make them successful. That would be the second thing. And the third thing is corruption. Yes, it's all pervasive thing, but as someone suggested, the leadership holds the key really. The leadership by example is what can at least try to transform these people, because the corruption is all pervasive. When I say it is there in all of us as well. In this country, to survive, we all become corrupt to a certain degree. That depends on our level and our stature and our requirements. So we need to really get down to the level of the person who we think is corrupt, because it is relative. The corruption is relative in this country. There is no absolute way of living completely morally free in this country. So we need to get down to that level and try to understand why that particular person has become corrupt. And then from then on you can try to, I mean, there is no one quick solution to all the corruption in this country unless we find out the individual problems over there. And that is my simple suggestion. I'm not being practical here, but that is what comes to my mind. Thank you very much.
Neil and 2-3 others who are not yet spoken.
Firstly, thank everyone and for giving me such an opportunity to be a participant here. Being a startup, I think we are the ones who got the highest ROI for this half day spent, and especially being so many social enterprises and few socially driven enterprises, I have a lot of insights, especially the pyramid model Dr. Rao sir said, and community engagement Dhyan Foundation has been doing. And it's a great learning for me. So being a startup, it's a great way to start. Actually, thank you so much, and thanks, Professor, once again.
Yeah, it was a privilege. So what we understood was trust. When you win trust, you get the community participation. And it was a different kind of expression, but Vasimalai sir also said that community ownership is important. So this is a big learning lesson for us.
Now that will hold on. Neil, you have anything to say? He's the youngest boy in the group.
So thanks a lot.
Full of idealistic fire in him, so I think what you have to say.
It's a privilege to be here, firstly.
Formal thank you stuff. Side mein rakho, what was the main learnings?
I think one or two things which really stood out for me was the entire task segmenting. I might be wrong, but I think that medicine is an exact science. To that extent, I think segmenting tasks will also help better the quality, of course. This entire thing about generating interest from the community, how do we get the community buy-in? I think that is another thing that Sir spoke about quite a lot. And of course, corruption is here to stay. So let's see. That is what I learned.
Okay, we then go on to...
I am a standalone. I don't have an organization. But the greatest learning that I am taking away is the strength of the collective. I think we ourselves are a collective, and there is so much possible when we just get together. So I think I don't need to be alone anymore. It's just the power of the collective can do amazing things. So thank you, Dr. Seshadri, for having me here.
We then go to the ISP, Mary Brigade. Swati will say a couple of learnings which are different. Your challenge is to say something different and not repeat.
Yeah, so since most of the things are already covered, and one thing which I feel that is a good takeaway is that all of us collectively can can do a lot better. Like Dr. Rao said that, the Han foundations can have a counter wherein, they can make the people socially, economically, they can, take care of themselves. So that is something which is really important, because once those people are actually learned, they are able to earn a living for themselves, they're out of poverty, they're out of education, they understand the meaning of it, and thereby maybe from the same family, if 100 cases or maybe not 110 cases, severe cases are coming for eye procedures, once they connect with Dhan foundations, maybe 1 or 2 cases would come up. Why? Because they would, by the time they would arrive at a certain level wherein they understand the importance of education, healthcare and that. So I think that is, but yes, true. And then they will subsidize for the ones who are not paying. Correct. Yeah, true.
He said it himself. Okay, we then have two budding academics who have a very strong research orientation from a management perspective. So I request Ashish to give a very surgical academic research management perspective on this whole workshop.
Okay, I don't know if this is working, but I'll try to be as loud as possible. So what I found is the biggest research potential that I have is I figured out that there is a lot of segmentation that can be done. And the challenge would be to try and answer if mapping the segments to the right kind of people who will be able to provide the support that would be needed. So just like, for every treatment, you don't need to go to a doctor, but there could be some other professionals who could do that. So if there is information which is available, I'm at least from what I have read in academia, it doesn't seem marketing has looked at, segmenting patients in such a way, and that could be, something that could really, probably. I mean, I'm quite sure Prakash and I would be working on it. So if we are doing, we could probably make a career out of it.
And Prakash, he's a guy whom I hold in high esteem because he puts tremendous precision into his thinking.
For the last 6 years, I've been training as a PhD student, and the training in science is always reductionist. And this meeting is kind of, putting everything upside down. All of the discussions and all of the solutions that are being discussed are more holistic. It's not about looking at one small thing and trying to look at what is the impact of that on the outcome. And it's about community participation. It is about bringing together people. It is about thinking through about other aspects of the program which are not just about the treatment. And this is going to be something that I'm going to be thinking about for quite some time. How do we capture this in some research paradigm? But that's for me at a personal level, as an academic, that's for me the biggest learning.
Okay, so I'll go. Yes.
I think people talk about ROI, right, all the time. So I share you a story which is so compelling. A few months ago, I landed in Vijayawada airport and I was on the bus to the terminal. And I ran into a high court judge known for many years. After a long time, I saw him. And he came up to me and said, Dr. Garu, you're becoming wealthier and wealthier each day. I got a little shocked that maybe there were some rumors floating about me or something like that. And so I said, what are you talking? He said, every morning when they get up, so many lakhs of people must be giving you blessings. Which money can equal that wealth? So I told him you made my day, and I've been sharing that story everywhere since then. So that's the return on investment, and I have even told some of our donors.
So friends, all good things need to wind down, and before I hand over for a 20-minute summary we have done, a way forward to Dr. GCS and TPD. Some freewheeling comments which some of it has come, some has not come. So I want to highlight especially for the more nascent organizations, folks like Santosh, Prasad, Rao, Manish, and Parmesh and others. The first thing that I learned from Dan was be at it, perseverance. That word came up once, twice in the last half an hour, but they don't just do a flavor of the season type of stuff. You catch a theme which you're deeply convinced and then stick on to it for 10 years. And it takes 10 years to see some result. It's not a flash in the pan type, and the quick results don't happen. I think in the movie that Vasi talked about, which was shared with you, that perseverance, being at it, is very, very important. When Parmesh asked me, how do I build the organization, I said, please don't just scale up for the sake of scaling. Be very, very choosy and picky about the people who come in, because one rotten apple can mess up the whole thing. And therefore, he has to, the founder, Prasad Rao, whoever, has to be personally involved in every recruitment for us all, as long as you can. I think that LVP has followed that practice. Dr. Rao has a vice-like grip on whoever comes in, and only then you... And Vasi also, of course, now these organizations have become very big, so they might have delegated it to other people who are clones of them. So to that extent, at least they are going to preserve the culture. That is very important, because otherwise the culture goes awry, and all the good, objectives of the organization go down the Kuam river or whichever gutter we can think of. So we have to be very, very careful. So don't delegate this thing. So if somebody is wanting to join your organization, I'm talking about these youngsters, make sure they don't come for a 15-minute interview with 20 guys waiting, next. That doesn't work. Ask them to spend 2 days, hang around, walk around the place. Vasi talked about it, of going to the villages, immersion and this. But in your context, let them meet existing senior leaders, junior leaders, everybody. And then any one of these people in your organization, if they put a red light, that person doesn't get in, no matter he's connected to you. And don't entertain any sifarish, that is what is called obligatory jobs. Even if the minister or prime minister says, sorry, we cannot do it. Otherwise, you will just mess up the organization in no time. So you have to have a very, very, very tight entry gate. Let it be a slow growth, but after that it can have an exponential growth. But your primary task is preservers of your culture, because once that is diluted, then only God can help. Then after that you will sit back and regret at leisure about what have I done. Because a few monkeys can really mess up the whole organization. I cannot, overemphasize this. It is also clear during my talks with LVPI that money and Dan, that money is not the key. Don't get too obsessed with it. Money will come. When the work is good, the money will come. Once I talked to Dr. GCS, also talked many times to Dr. Rao, where will all the money for the growth comes? And the conclusion is, if you're doing good work, money just pours. People will bend backwards. Even those who don't have money will probably even forego a meal, but say, here is 1,000 rupees, I will fast for 3 days, but you guys are doing such good work that this is for me it's a king's ransom, I'm giving you $1,000, my contribution. The other important thing which I learnt, which both Dan and LVP manifest, is importance of knowledge creation. It cannot be just a hospital. Somewhere in your realm you have to maniacally create knowledge, create white papers, write some position papers, get yourself visible as a thought leader. And that is the speciality of LVP. That's why we have so many people. Every one of them sitting in the LVP side have 100 papers, 200, 300 papers to their credit. And that's not funny. And same thing with Dan. The number of publications they bring out can fill this room. I'm not exaggerating this, but they have on their themes, chosen themes, people, so many things they keep writing, whether it's a report, impact report, assessment, get the person who is doing the work, something new. So you become a thought leader, and that is where I also advise Parmesh. He took it to heart. Originally he was thinking of calling it colorectal hospital or some such thing, And then after LVPI, he changed it to Colorectal Institute. So he owes you some royalty for that. Because that institute makes all the difference. Then you're a thought leader of sorts. So you...
Once he takes you to the grassroots level, royalty is paid.
Also, don't get obsessed with holding on to manpower. You have to be very, very clear as startup organizations or nascent organizations that yours will be a pass-through model. Arvind has perfected it at their MLOPs. I think Dan to a lesser extent, but LVP also. You get in and then you work for 3-4 years. You tremendous amount of focus on induction. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry is brought in. Even if you bring him in, there's tremendous, engineering of his brain so that he comes on track into the culture of the organization. And you reconcile that after 3 years, if he becomes too big for his shoes, off he goes into the wide world. But you have a pipeline that is filling your HR, and that is essential. So don't get into this thing of, oh, I need to hold on to this guy. Then your model starts breaking because these people become extremely expensive. You may have 3 or 4 key people whom you want to keep, but otherwise your costs will go awry if you get focus on retention. At least maybe somewhere you'll have to segment your whole manpower and say this top 3-4 I want to be stable, but the rest of it can be a pass-through, like 3-4 years retention. And the good thing is the guys who go out or become ambassadors of your model, because you have sort of engineered their brain forever. So when they go out, they carry that value system and such. Also, don't worry about doctors. We talked about those who are running after money. There are enough doctors with good heart and just work with such people. Don't need to. We are not here to change the world and change, the money-making, money-minting doctors and say, no, don't make money. That is like going and trying to, it's a worthless attempt. So just go after those who actually can be transformed into a more holistic type of approach to healthcare, and just ignore those who want to make 500 crores sitting in a tier 2 city. That's not your segment of people you want to touch, or not only doctors but other employees that you're looking at. The next is insulate yourself from the government to the extent possible. Of course, somebody like Evita might say that that's my only way to scale, but notwithstanding that, wherever possible, I think both Dan and LVP have more or less been role models of insulating from the government, and therefore corruption doesn't bother them. They are totally outside the corruption. You're not here to change the world. So if you start breaking your head on how do I change the world, then it's going to be, you get distracted and diverted from your whole mission. And the last thing is have a laser-like focus on sustainability. The moment you're dipping your hands for running the organization into donorship and such, then you're on a short fuse. And that's where I think both Dan and LVP have really spent a lot of high quality intellectual thinking on sustainability. To my best understanding, in the case of Dan, it comes from the community. And of course, their linkages with the banks and so on, once they establish a viability of the community institution at the village, at the block, and at the district level, they call them as self-help groups, and then that is the collegiums, and then the clusters and the federations. It's a very beautiful pyramidal model again, but it's very, very focused on sustainability. They don't go with a hat in hand and say, please give me money, otherwise I will die, because the donors are here today, gone tomorrow. And LVP also has been very focused on sustainability. It's a very delicate balancing act, but for growth, I'm sure both organizations, at least LVP, does depend on donors. But once again, because the credibility is so high, donors just come pouring in to the point that now they have to say, stop, we don't want. You might be knowing it, but one of the biggest pharma tycoons in the country has offered LVP 500 crores. And Dr. Rao and the senior management said, we don't want it, sorry, we are happy with what we have. So that ability to say no to any forces that can take you away from your main mission is something which comes. So to end, I think I want to say that the whole focus should be on credibility. Build credibility, that's the magic word. How do you build credibility? And once credibility is there, the government can't touch you, so corruption, you're insulated. People will flock to you. you can try and create this Teach for India type of models, because the certificate in your organization is so valuable that it is very monetizable for those who want to move on in life, and then money just becomes a non-issue. I think with that, this is just a sort of parting advice to those nascent organizations, and with that I'd like to...
Any advice to senescent organizations?
Okay, we have about 15-20 minutes, let's say 20 minutes. I'll hand over the mic to Dr. GCS and TPD to jointly conduct a session on what next, because this topic of identifying potential synergies, partnerships has essentially been covered through this discussion. It will be a one-to-one type of engagement and so on. But what next? How do we create a forum or whatever else it is? And we are well ahead of time if we grant that this is...
So I'll go first and then give to TP. Ramam had something to say, then Ramam will chip in, and if anyone else wants to add something, probably show of hands, and then the mics will go around. Hopefully we'll finish fast. So I'm starting with where I started off at the beginning: livelihood, education and health, and the inseparable connection between those, that if one has to be sustainable, the others have to be in place. And I think from that perspective, I think the greatest strength comes to this group from the model that has been proven as a pyramidal model from L.B. Prasad Institute and the grassroots level work that Dhan Foundation has done. And I think everybody has to probably look at Dhan for making whatever they're doing worthwhile for the people at the grassroots level. So my first thought would be that all of us are interested in the primary care at the grassroots level. And I think I will request Prakash probably to actually map out the areas where all of us are working and where there is a synergy for people to work together. So there is no point in having a village vision guardian who looks at only vision, and there is someone else looking at colorectal, someone else looking at maternal adolescent health, maternal child health, and NCDs and things like that. So we need to map those areas where we can potentially work together, and at the primary care level, what are the skills required and what can be done is what needs to be mapped out, and go towards at least piloting in some of those places where we are together to see what kind of a model will work and take it forward that way. I think from that perspective, community ownership, as Vasi said, I think is very important, and we need his input into those as to wherever we do what we want to do at the primary level. At the secondary level, I think unless there is a secondary level coverage, the primary level screening and picking up the disease will not be successful. How we will sort out that problem is something that needs to be seen beyond eye care, at least in the areas where people are involved in this stage. I think there is an opportunity for doing that. And once again, at that level, it has been said that unless you have the community ownership and people are empowered, corruption cannot be fought, and whatever needs to be done cannot be done at that level. The other thing I think that is important from my perspective is that when we talk about people with and without heart, one of the things I am fond of telling all the trainees is that you need to be a good human being first, then a good doctor, then an ophthalmologist, then a super specialist that you have come to here train for. If you become only a super specialist and forget the other three levels, then you are not going to be a useful human being, is the point I keep saying. So from that perspective, I think one of the things that we talked about apart from the 3Hs is the immersion program that Dhan has talked about. So is there an opportunity for people who are going to become super specialists to actually get immersed at the grassroots levels in the villages, spend whatever is the structured program for that immersion, maybe 1 week or 2 days or whatever is the program. I think that is a felt need if you want to have more people with the heart component, not just with the hands and head. So I think that is one thing that is required. One last passing remark, because it did not come up at all at this level, is that I think the problem in healthcare of poverty is no less than the problem of plenty. Because we are tuned towards getting super specialists and super specialty hospitals, in the cities, the patients have no access to a primary care physician. They end up with a super specialist, and I was sharing with somebody, if it's an epigastric pain because of acidity and you end up with a cardiologist, you'll get an angiogram. So we don't have, see, the problem of super specialization as healthcare as such that we are talking about, and in the cities the problems are probably more than the problems in the villages where they have at least one primary care physician or whoever else it is can guide them properly. That patient centricity is not there anymore because everybody is looking at creating wealth. The return of investment is wealth rather than community good. So in that perspective, I think the profession has become myopic and they've lost the patient for the money that they're creating. So those are the thoughts that I wanted to share. I'll give it to TP.
Well, few things I listed, and many of the repeated, I know I will be overlapping many people who have spoken or GC just spoken. This point that I noted down here, paramedics training, I think many of us have realized and understand that depending on doctors, it's not necessary to go to the village level. The village level people are different because you offer different perspective of medical care. There is also important medical care. I give an example. In a tribal district of Orissa, we examine in 47 days exactly 153,000 school children. They're done in a different stages. Ultimately, the people who landed in the hospital are only 883. So that is how the teachers, then the IOS doctor, then the paramedics, all keep on filtering so that we reduce the burden, so that we can actually finish the work in a populous country like India. And that happened because we got a strong paramedics training called vision technician who actually did the work and used the technology of not refracting manually but using the machine to refract the eyes when required to. Other one we have been repeatedly talking this morning, since morning, is a community ownership. I did not say partnership. I always mean ownership. How can community own what you are doing? That like in a typical Coimbatore Tamil language, they never use the word I, they use the word we. When I didn't know Tamil at all, I was once in a Coimbatore Tamil Nadu camp, first I camp, I didn't know Tamil at all. This young lady with a 3-month-old child, watering the eyes and says that, Namma kulandiki kantarila. I got scared. I said, Namma Kulandi means our child. I said, no. Somebody corrected him. No, don't worry. Our child only. So how can we be a community partner? That will happen only when the community feels that you are doing good for them, not creating unnecessary wealth, but creating necessary wealth for survival. So that everybody appreciates that. Nobody says no to money as long as it is essential money. Third, I written down that we are all creating the right ecosystem because we heard about maternal child health, colorectal, village vision, or school screening, something. So we create all together a right ecosystem where you do not have to duplicate, but actually work in a synergy so that one potentiates other partnership. Like Dhan, I have a question. Is it called Dhan or Dhan? Okay, Dhan. Like Ladi Dandana Dhan thing. Because unfortunately the Sanskrit word Gati is called Gati in this country, so I got worried. So how can create a right ecosystem of working together? And finally, inclusive partnership, instead of like DC pointed out that can a person in a village be trained for more than one thing? Then just for the eye, one for child, one for mother, one for something else, so that can we have inclusive partnership so that we can do it all well together. Rama.
No, I just listed this going by the notes that you, going by that docket that you sent, reading that and going by our discussions today, I just made a list of collaboration opportunities that at least LVPI can do with individual NGOs, and Dr. Rao already made an offer of welcoming everyone to work in our community eye care from our secondary center. So I just made this list and this is may not be 100% right, but just at a surface level. Say example with Ameya Life, we can do help for school screening for refractive error or for technology collaboration. For Dhan Foundation, it can be community eye care, innovation and education. It's for doctors for Seva, then it can be eye banking. If it is nano health, then it can be technology, and for community care at doorstep. If it's Saksham, then it is eye banking, rehab and community care. If it is Smiles, then community care. With Fernandez Hospital,
it's again education and community care. So everywhere with all of the participant organization, there is synergy. So if we can work together, then we can make a bigger difference. And from a learning perspective, sir, on a lighter note, if the Dan Foundation said that, of course, you have to do Dan, but you also have to have Dhan for revolving credit to handle government and all. Both Dan and Dhan are required for this one. And this corruption thing, I also get very frustrated, like several of you and all. The only way I think is like to do relax a gun policy for citizens to have a gun so that you can shoot all corrupt politicians and all. And possibly that's the only way. Otherwise, it's so democratized corruption that it is very, very difficult. So,
Otherwise, it's dignity through human action.
Development,
The second
development of human actions.
dignity or development? Development through human action. Okay, I stand corrected. The next is as institutes, you also have to focus one major lesson from both Dan and LVP and Arvind is basically you have to focus on developing the manpower. There's nobody sitting out there waiting to join your organizations. So you have to create an ecosystem by which people come in, get trained and move. So that is absolutely important. Otherwise you're not going to crack this problem. With that, we are now looking at ideas for sustainability.
I think as a way forward, one of the things that I thought it will be important to bring forth is the whole pyramidal model that we have has come out of a very intense scientific study, which is Andhra Pradesh eye disease study. And that has really anchored the whole model such that we have an evidence for our action. I think it will be good to hear from all the organizations if they have those kind of documents and learn from those, because I think it is those anchors that are very crucial for us to keep moving forward. So that will be my request in the future meeting, if we can have just 5 minutes from learning from each organization. Has there been a kind of a scientific study or evidence on which their activities are based? That will be one. The second thing that I am participating and I have seen that in action is the use of technology in education. We do what we call as eco clinics. It's a very interesting educational program where people need not come directly to the site, and online through direct video conferencing you can connect. The amount of bandwidth required is very low. This is particularly going to be very important for continuity of education. I think when person is in a formal program, that ends. When they go into the ground reality or the practice, they come across with problems and then there is nobody to help them out. So this program, ECHO program, was started in the state of New Mexico by a hepatologist who realized that there are not enough hepatologists to take care of hepatitis C infected patients. They said that I cannot handle all of those cases even if they are referred to me. So he then evolved this program where every week people share cases that they are handling. I think it will be good to think about how do we expand education to create or help develop human resource quickly without asking each one of them to come to formal education.
Sir, I think one of the way forwards would be that in the last 3 or 4 months, we have done a grassroots level study in 525 villages of Telangana. We have gone door to door and we have done a huge level of, vision defects, blindness and stuff. I think one help, that immediate help that we would need is the data that we have collected, how to publish, what to publish, whether we did a good job, bad job, all of this. I think LVPI can, because we have a workforce, but the quality of work that we have done, whether it's good, bad, ugly, is something which you can tell us. Second thing, one village in Nagar Karnool district in remote Mahbub Nagar is now declared as blindness free. And we are now declaring almost like 14, 15 as avoidable blindness free villages in Nagar Karnool, Manaparthi, Gadwal and Mahbub Nagar, where we are working at grassroots level. Now your Todakurta, is it Todakurti? Todakurti Center can be one of those models where Vision Guardian, Netra Rakshak, Site Ambassador, NCD Sati, colorectal nurse, community worker for maternity care. Can this be piloted or tested or developed? I think Professor DVR would be one person probably. The biggest takeaway is, can we do this in one center where we can have an army of people down and then we can do this? Absolutely. And Mahbub Nagar is one of the high priority districts of Government of India where the maternal mortality and infant mortality is one of the highest in India. And the adjoining district in Karnataka, which is Raichur and other districts, are also very, very high in MMR. And also not only MMR and IMR, but also stillbirth rate is highest in these districts. So, your mic.
Tudikatti is one of our sites for our initial Andhra Pradesh IDC study done about 20 years ago, and which is now replicated, the longitudinal, first of its kind anywhere done in the developing world, a longitudinal study following up after 15 years what happened in that community, that we concluded that I think the data is being analyzed right now. So we have very good solid evidence of vision impairment, blindness in that community. That also is there, epidemiologic data.
And I'll cut short. When we are doing this in Jabalpur, tribal areas, Karnal, Jaipur, so we really, we have collected a lot of data. We are trying to analyzing it, but I think if your inputs, your guidance is there, I think we can take it forward.
I think, Santosh, what I'll do is I'll connect you with our public health team, Dr. Rohit Khanna and his group. I think you could meet with them and then certainly.
Thank you so much.
For this kind of thing, yeah, we can start actually plan for it. When we meet next time, we should present that idea and how we are progressing, and then 6 months from now, we should show the results.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dr. GNR in action.
A big round of applause. I think Tudukurti can be.
And I saw him in action at a government meeting. He seems to control Telangana government. So.
No, we are all looking up to you for guidance. Absolutely.
Up to me, government goes out. Maybe for the first year, every quarter would be a great idea to keep the momentum.
Yeah. Maybe a few more organizations could jump in. In Madurai, we obviously will need, we'll also have.
There's only one thought. Given the amount of trust deficit which we have in healthcare today, and so,
it's not working.
no, I said given the amount of trust deficit you have in healthcare today, it's only increasing. Is there a role we have as a body to address some bit of that? So even if we are able to convey in a manner of speaking, the world is not black and white, it has shades of grey, without making within quotes the corporate world sound evil, at least there is some sense of optimism, hope, objectivity, which may be able to bring in the society.
Address this issue of trust deficit, I teach, although I don't have competence, 3 courses on healthcare management at ISB, because they found the guy from abroad who teaches it too expensive. They found me as a bakra and said, go and do it. So anyway, the brief I was given by the institute while teaching these or run into the teaching is, don't talk about any NGO hospital, because all the 60 are coming from corporate and for-profit, except for 1 or 2 black sheep. So you will get electrocuted if you talk about NGO hospitals, not for profit. And what you're talking is essentially only reinforcing this thing. And therefore I had to eat humble pie and just talk about nothing wrong about it, but the Apollos of the world So that's what I did. But then now I have to change my avatar and with pride, garv say, I have to talk about these alternate models. But notwithstanding that, the other idea is if Ramam Garu can work with us, maybe as a core group I can suggest Prakash and I and you, and maybe somebody from Vasi or IT team, of creating some sort of a platform. I don't know what that would be called. What is it called? Some WhatsApp is the minimum thing, but beyond that something here. Some platform where we can keep talking to each other and exchanging thoughts and such. Whoever wants can, and that population of people can grow. Today we are 40 here or 38, but it can grow to 300 by 3 months and 3,000 and sort of get more and more people. So I think can we work with you on that? Then that will create some momentum, because it's not just about some isolated little thing, but getting more people sensitized that there is a need for this, for a more stable society. Any other thoughts? We have a hard constraint that we have to close at 1:45, because having pulled the wagon so long, we should not lose a few people on the way. Dr. Raja and both Rajas, right? Rajiv and Raja. So I have a hard stop at 1:45. And therefore, I'll now hand over, if it's okay, can we close this session? You also have to propose a formal vote of thanks.
No, I think when we close, I have 1 minute video clip that I want to move your hearts a little bit before you leave, because we're talking about equitable access to health care here.
So should he finish and vote of thanks? I think he can finish, because if it moves our hearts so much, we may not.
No. So much so recently I had a lecture at Star Hospital and I showed that, and Gopichan, the chairman, comes on to me and said, "Why do you make us cry like this?"
I think it was a wonderful session. We got to learn a lot from each one of you, and thanks for pulling time for this activity, and hopefully this will become a community that will aim to bring change in the society. And thank you very much.
So all of us here should prevent such perilous journey to any mother and son if we really provide equitable, accessible health care to all the people.